Void Miner, Children of the Belt, Part 4. Chapter 16. Fatherhood Reflections. The derelict station was quieter these days, not silent, not the deathly hush it had been when Arg first boarded, but quieter in the way of a machine settling into its own rhythm. The clatter of hasty repairs had eased. The alarms that once bled through every corridor had gone still. The children were the noise now, laughter sharp as broken glass, arguments that rose and fell like tides, footsteps echoing through patched bulkheads as they carried tools or food or scrap. Ark stood in the central junction, boots planted wide on the grating, listening. He could tell where they were without even looking. Teo's voice carried high as he explained something to a pair of younger ones, words tangled in excitement and nerves. Ariel barked orders from the recycling bay, her tone harsh but steady. Even Kerr had softened his edges, though it came out mostly as muttered curses when things didn't work his way. They were beginning to sound like a crew, not yet polished, not yet safe, but closer than they had been. And Arg, for the first time, let himself step back to watch instead of direct. He didn't like how natural it felt. Later, in the widow's cockpit, Arg switched on the comm. The line buzzed, cracked, then steadied into Kara's voice. "You're quiet tonight," she said. Arg leaned back in his chair, staring through the viewport at the thin scatter of stars. "Just listening." "To what?" "Them. The kids. They don't need me every second anymore." A pause. Then Kara's voice softened. "And how does that feel?" Ark grunted, uncomfortable with the question. He didn't answer right away. "Like I'm watching something grow," he admitted at last. Kara's laugh was gentle, warm, even through the static. "You are. That's what you've been doing since you boarded that wreck. You've been raising them, Ark, whether you meant to or not." Her words stuck in him, deeper than he wanted. He shifted in his chair, jaw tight. "I'm no father." "You're learning," Kara said, "and so are they. Don't tell me you can't see the shape of it." Arg closed his eyes. He did see it. In the way Teo looked at him for approval, in how Ariel's scowl softened when she thought he wasn't watching, in how the younger ones gathered near him in silence, comforted just by his presence. It was something more than training, something heavier. And when he thought of Kara, hand resting on her belly, life growing inside her, the weight doubled. The next day, Arg found himself standing with Teo in the recycler bay. The boy was bent over the filter housings, hands black with grime, lips moving as he counted bolts. Arg said nothing at first, just watched. Teo's fingers slipped once, then twice. The third time he cursed under his breath. "You're rushing," Arg said. Teo jumped, nearly dropping the wrench. "Didn't hear you." "That's because you weren't listening." The boy frowned, confusion mixing with irritation. Arg crouched, his bulk filling the narrow space beside him. He took the wrench, tightened the bolt with one smooth motion, then handed it back. "You think it's about speed. It's not. It's about steadiness. Every piece you fix keeps someone breathing." Teo swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the wrench. I almost got Kerr killed." Ark studied him. The memory of the burst pipe still lingered heavy in all of them. He didn't soften his tone. "Almost doesn't matter. He's alive. You learned. What matters is what you do next." Teo nodded slowly, jaw tight. Arg clapped a heavy hand on his shoulder. "Steady hands. That's what keeps people alive. Remember that." The boy's eyes met his for a flicker of a moment. There was trust there. More than that. Dependence. It unsettled Arg more than the silence of the void ever had. That night, laying on his bunk, Arg let the thoughts gnaw at him. He remembered his own father only in fragments. Calloused hands, harsh words, a presence more absent than anything else. He had raised himself in the mines, carved his own survival from rock and void. He had sworn long ago that he needed no one, that needing meant weakness, that weakness meant death. And now here he was, with half-grown orphans looking to him for every answer, and a child of his own waiting to be born in the hub. Arg turned to his side, restless. What kind of father could he be? He knew the void. He knew how to fight, how to endure. But fatherhood? That was something softer, stranger. Something that required not just strength, but patience, care, presence. He wasn't sure he had it in him. Kara's voice came through the comm the next evening, tired, but still carrying its familiar steadiness. The guild was at it again today, she said. 2 factions screaming at each other over a shipment of alloys. I kept them from tearing each other apart, but only barely. You always do, Arg said. It's different now, Kara admitted. Every time I walk into a room, they see more than just me. They see this. He could picture her hand resting on her belly. It changes how they listen. Arg shifted, uneasy. Does it change how you speak? Her silence was thoughtful. Yes, I think more. I weigh my words, because they're not just mine anymore. They belong to the child, too. Arg's throat tightened. He wanted to say something, but the words caught. Kara filled the silence, her voice gentler. You're thinking about it too, aren't you? About what kind of father you'll be? Arg grunted. Trying not to. Kara laughed softly. Then you already are. The line crackled. Arg sat in silence, staring at the stars. She was right. He was already thinking of it. Every time he corrected Teo's grip on a wrench, every time he made Ariel repeat a safety check, every time he bit back his own temper to let them try again. He was already practicing fatherhood, whether he admitted it or not. And the thought scared him more than any trial, more than any seed, more than the void itself. The derelict station hummed around him, patched and imperfect, but alive. The children moved through its corridors with growing confidence. Kara's voice carried across the distance, steady even in fatigue. And Arg, for the first time, let himself wonder. Not if they would survive, but if he could truly be the man both these children and his own unborn child needed him to be. It was a question the void could not answer. Only he could. Chapter 17. Real Danger. The derelict station had reached a balance, fragile but real. The hum of patch systems carried steadier now, air recyclers keeping pace, the lights running more hours than they failed. The children were starting to wear their work like second skins. They bickered less, laughed more. Some nights, Arg could sit in the widow's cockpit, listening to the murmur of their voices through the bulkheads, and almost believe they had carved something lasting out of wreckage. But balance in the belt never lasted. The void had its own rules. Arg knew it. The station would remind them soon enough. The reminder came in the form of a failing reactor drift, not theirs, but one close enough to matter. The orphans brought the report to him, excitement and fear mixed sharp in their voices. A derelict power core floating in a shallow orbit, its shell cracked, its regulators failing, dangerous, unstable, but valuable. Scrap traders would kill for what's left inside, Ariel argued, eyes bright. They'd kill us if we don't get it first, Kerr added, grinning like the risk was half the prize. Teo stood silent, eyes shifting to Arg, waiting for judgment. Arg didn't give it right away. He stared at the hollow feet of the reactor drift, the tumbling mass of broken metal lit by the glow of leaking coolant. Hazardous didn't begin to cover it, but it was also a chance, the kind of test that revealed whether these half-wild children were learning or just parroting his words. He growled low in his chest. Gear up. The widow carried them close. its hull groaning as it adjusted to the drift's unstable field. The reactor loomed ahead, cracked casing spilling vapor into the dark, faint sparks drifting like dying stars. Arg stood at the airlock, helmet under his arm. The children gathered around, voices buzzing through their comms. "You remember the drills," he said, voice steady. "You don't move without checking your tether. You don't cut corners. You don't take risks that make you a story someone else tells." Kerr rolled his eyes but nodded. Ariel clipped her tether with a sharp efficiency. Teo double-checked his line twice. Arg watched them all, his chest tight in a way he didn't show. He told himself he wouldn't intervene, not unless it meant losing them. They had to face this. They had to learn. The hatch opened. The void rushed in. They moved like awkward shadows across the reactor surface, tethers pulling tight, mag boots clinking to scorched metal. The drift's slow tumble made the stars wheel dizzying overhead. Arg stayed anchored to the Widow's hull, watching. Ariel took point, guiding them toward a salvage hatch. Her voice carried through the comms, crisp, commanding. Kerr grumbled, but followed, his hands quick on the tools. Teo lagged behind, scanning constantly, his caution balancing the other's recklessness. They reached the hatch, sealed and warped. Ariel braced herself. Kerr set the cutter. Teo fed him the charge. Sparks showered into the void. The hatch gave way with a groan, revealing the dark chamber within. The children froze. Breaths loud over the comms. The reactor's glow pulsed faint, unstable, shadows flickering like heartbeat. "This is insane," Teo whispered. "This is survival," Ariel shot back. Kerr laughed, reckless. "It's ours." The chamber was a maze of cables and coolant lines, hissing, leaking, alive with unstable energy. Every step was a gamble. But the children pressed forward, guided by Ariel's barked orders, Kerr's brute force, Teo's wary eyes. Arg's hand clenched on the Widow's console as he watched their helmet feeds. He wanted to shout, to tell them to slow down, to pull back. But he held his tongue. They had to face the void. Then the floor shuddered. A coolant line burst. The chamber filled with vapor, blinding white. Kerr screamed, tether jerking as he slipped. "Tethers!" Ariel shouted. Teo lunged, grabbed Kerr's line, hauled with everything he had. Arg's muscles bunched, instinct screaming to intervene. But through the haze he saw it. The boy's grip holding, his stance steady, his breathing ragged but unbroken. Kerr cursed, shaking but alive. The vapor cleared slowly. The children regrouped, coughing into their mics, shaken but not broken. When they finally staggered back through the hatch, dragging salvage regulators and coils between them, Arg was waiting. He didn't praise them. He didn't scold them. He only said, "You lived." Ariel met his gaze, sweat slick on her brow inside the helmet. "Because of what you taught us." Arg grunted, but inside, something shifted. They hadn't just survived. They had done it together, pulling each other back from the edge. He saw the shape of it then. Not just orphans, not just scavengers. A crew, a family, rough and unformed, but real. And as the widow carried them back toward the station, Arg found his thoughts drifting not to the children at his side, but to the child waiting to be born. If he could keep these orphans alive in the teeth of the void, maybe, just maybe, he could be a father after all. Chapter 18. Group Conflict. The drift mission left its mark on them. Arg could see it in every gesture, every tone of voice. They walked taller now, shoulders squared, pride radiating off them like heat from a reactor core. For the first time, they had gone out into the void and come back with more than scars. They had salvaged something worth keeping, and more importantly, They had done it together. But pride had teeth. Arg knew it well. In the mines, it was always the man boasting the loudest who forgot to double-check a seal, the one grinning at his haul who failed to notice a loose tether. Pride blinded. And now he saw it creeping across the children's faces, sparkling in their voices, igniting in the space between them. The first crack came in the mess. The bowls of reheated ration stew sat half-eaten. The air smelled of grease and rust. Ariel leaned forward on her elbows, voice sharp. I let us in. We got back alive because I kept us steady. Kerr slammed a spoon against the table, splattering broth. We got back because I cut that hatch open. Without me, you'd still be staring at the casing. You almost got yourself killed, Ariel snapped. Kerr's grin was feral. And I didn't. That's the difference. Tio shifted uncomfortably, eyes darting between them. It wasn't just either of you. We had to pull each other out. Neither of them listened. You think barking orders makes you the leader, Kerr sneered at Ariel. You're just loud. And you think swinging a cutter makes you worth following? Ariel shot back. You'd be a corpse if not for me. The room's air thickened, the younger ones shrinking back, eyes wide. Arg sat at the far end, chewing slowly, saying nothing. He'd seen this before. Every crew fractured after its first victory. Pride was as dangerous as hunger. The argument didn't end at the mess. It carried into the corridors, into the recycler bay, into every shared task. Ariel barked orders sharper than ever, her tone brittle. Kerr pushed back louder, sloppier, until tools clattered and tempers flared. Even Tio, usually steady, snapped once when neither of them would listen. You're both going to get us killed, his voice cracked, and silence followed, heavy and raw. Arg didn't step in. Not yet. He watched, listened, measured. Conflict wasn't always a weakness. Sometimes it was the forge where crews were tempered. But he also knew the line. If pride turned to fracture, the void would finish them all. The break came during a routine seal check. Ariel insisted on triple-checking the valves. Kerr mocked her, called it wasted time. She shoved him. He shoved back. The tether lines tangled, nearly yanking them both off balance in the narrow corridor. Arg's voice cut through like steel. Enough! They froze. His shadow filled the passage, shoulders broad, eyes dark under the dim light. You want to fight? His voice was low, dangerous. Fight the void. Fight the leaks. Fight the hunger waiting out there. You fight each other, and you'll save the void the trouble of killing you. Kerr's jaw tightened. Ariel's hands curled into fists. Neither spoke. Arg stepped closer, his presence filling the air. You think leadership's about shouting loudest or swinging the biggest tool? It's not. Leadership's carrying the weight when no one else can. It's being last to eat, last to sleep, first to bleed. It's responsibility, not pride. His words rang through the silence. The younger ones stared, wide-eyed. Even Teo held his breath. Finally, Arg stepped back. Now untangle those lines, and don't let me hear this again. The tension lingered, but the fight was broken. For the next cycle, the station was quieter. Ariel and Kerr still snapped, but the edge was dulled. They worked, sullen but steady. That night, Arg sat in the widow's cockpit, staring at the comm panel. He hesitated, then opened the line. Kara's voice came, soft with fatigue. You sound heavier tonight. Kids are tearing at each other, Arg said. Like the guild, Kara murmured. Arg grunted. Pride, same sickness everywhere. Silence stretched. Then Kara's voice softened. And what did you do? I reminded them what pride costs. Kara's laugh was tired, but real. You're learning to be me. Arg frowned. What's that mean? It means you're learning to keep people together even when they don't want to be. That's half of parenthood. The rest is just patience. Arg leaned back, staring at the stars. Patience. The one thing he'd never had much of. And yet, with these children, and with the one waiting to be born, he knew he'd need more of it than ever before. In the days that followed, the station's rhythm slowly steadied again. The arguments dulled, the pride burned lower. The orphans still bristled, still stumbled. But when Arg listened to the hum of the patched corridors, he heard something new woven into the noise. Not just survival, not just struggle, but the faintest note of unity, raw and fragile, waiting to be shaped. And Arg, for all his doubts, knew that shaping it was his burden to bear. Chapter 19. Building Independence. Arg had learned through long years in the belt that no one truly grew stronger under another's shadow. You could learn habits, you could borrow skills, but you did not become your own until the day someone stopped stepping in to catch you. That thought sat like a heavy stone in his gut as he watched the cluster of young faces studying the stripped-down schematics he had spread across the mess table in the derelict's common bay. The orphans leaned in, tense, excited, suspicious. A few of the younger ones traced the lines of the plan with fingers dirty from grease and recycled air scrub dust. The older ones kept arms folded, not showing their interest, though Arg saw their eyes flick to the lines he'd drawn, the path to a derelict ore tug adrift not far from the abandoned station they now called home. 2 runs, Arg said, his voice gravel over iron. Small scale, no widow, no me right over your shoulder. You plan it, you pull it, you get back in one piece. That's the measure. There was a ripple of unease. Jorik, one of the sharp-tongued teens with a permanent scowl, muttered, So you're just going to sit back and let us screw it up? Arg met his gaze steadily. That's the point. You'll screw something up. You'll fix it, or you won't. That's the way the Void teaches. I'll be listening, watching, but I won't step in unless you're about to kill yourselves. Short of that, it's yours. The younger ones looked both terrified and thrilled. A girl named Lynn, barely past childhood, whispered, Like our own mission? Exactly, Arg said. Kara was learning the same lesson in her own way, back on the hub. The guild pressed her with disputes daily. Ore weight quotas, hull repair contracts, small-time traders trying to edge into lanes they weren't licensed to use. She had been guiding those talks more from her quarters lately, the fatigue of her 4th month of pregnancy creeping heavier into her limbs each day. She wasn't used to sitting so much. She'd lived her life moving, surviving. Now, as her belly began to show, she found herself speaking to whole rooms of guilders and miners from the comfort of a padded chair near the medwing. Her presence still carried weight, even if her body no longer strode into the chamber. That day, as Arg sent the orphans towards their first independent run, Kara leaned back after a long negotiation and pressed a hand against her stomach. A flutter, subtle, not quite movement, but the awareness of new life deepening. Her mind drifted to Arg. She wondered if he would have told the orphans what he often muttered to himself, that you didn't grow strong by being carried. She'd hoped they'd come back. She hoped Arg wouldn't blame himself if they didn't. The first orphan mission was simple by design. Retrieve stored scrap from a half-collapsed cargo pod tethered to an old mining rig near the derelict's outer rim. Arg had scouted it weeks ago. Stable enough, but a test of judgment. He watched from the widow's sensor console, helmet still on, comms linked but muted unless emergency hit. The orphans had kited themselves in mismatched EVA gear, some of it salvaged, some repaired under Arg's guidance. They looked like a ragtag swarm of belt ghosts pushing off into the void. "Keep tether spacing," came Lena's nervous voice over the open comms. She had been one of the quicker learners, better at systems than most. Jorek cut in. "Quit yapping like you're the captain. Just move." Already the tension crackled. Arg ground his teeth, but forced himself not to break silence. The void would teach. They reached the pod. The youngest fumbled with clamps, dropping a tool that spun lazily until another caught it. They argued, wasted minutes, then finally worked together enough to stabilize the cargo doors. Inside, scrap plating, wires, half a ton of salvage. They loaded awkwardly, two of them nearly overbalancing, until Lena barked at them to adjust tether angles. Her words carried enough bite to be obeyed. When they returned, sweating, bickering, but intact, Arg allowed himself a tight nod. The second mission came 2 shifts later. This one was harder. A scavenging run inside an unpressurized maintenance bay of a derelict hauler. Radiation warnings low but steady, the kind of job where panic killed faster than the environment. He watched them struggle through narrow access points, lights bobbing like fireflies in the dark carcass of the ship. They split up against protocol. Arg cursed under his breath. Minutes later, one panicked cry erupted over comms. "I'm stuck!" Arg's hands itched to hit thrusters, to fly over and rip them free. But he forced himself still. He gave them one clipped transmission. "Talk. Where?" The trapped boy, Kel, gasped about a wedged arm, a shifting panel. Another orphan, Lynn, found him, pulled with clumsy force, then realized leverage worked better. They freed him, hearts pounding. Arg exhaled when he saw their blips moving again. They came back slower, rattled, but alive. When the orphans stumbled back into the derelict's bay after that second mission, Arg met them not with applause, but with silence. They stood in a loose huddle, shifting uncomfortably, expecting praise or condemnation. Finally, he said, 2 runs. You lived. You learned. That's what matters. You did well enough to see another day." For the first time, none argued. Even Jorek kept his mouth shut. That night, while they ate thin stew together, Arg caught himself watching them the way he imagined a father might, measuring not just survival, but growth. He thought of Kara, sitting in her quarters far away, hand on her swollen stomach. He wondered if he was ready, truly ready, to be what his unborn child would need. The void had taught him many things. Now he was trying to teach the same, and learning uncomfortably that fatherhood began long before the child was born. Chapter 20. Foreshadowing Change. The hub never slept, but it did dim. Light softened along the main corridors, shifting from the pale white of waking hours to a warm amber glow meant to trick the body into believing time passed naturally. Arg had been here long enough to know the illusion never worked. The hub wasn't a world. It was a cage built from salvaged alloy and willpower. No rotation of lamps could make up for the missing sun. He moved through the dim-lit passages with the slow weight of a man carrying too much on his shoulders. He'd just returned from the orphan's latest scavenging run, a mission he had forced himself to watch without stepping in. They had pulled it off, barely. One nearly froze a glove in a vented compartment. Another lost their tether until a quick-thinking partner reeled them back. The mistakes had been small enough to survive, large enough to scar them with a lesson. Arg told himself that was what mattered. The belt didn't breed clean victories. It bred scars you could learn from. Still, he carried the tension of every near miss in his chest. It rode with him now as he turned the corner towards Kara's quarters. quiet hub where she spent most of her days. The guild had insisted she be housed close to the medwing. It was safer that way. 6 months into her pregnancy, the risk of complications had grown more real. Kara had resisted the move at first, claiming she could handle the walk from the guild offices. But Arg knew the truth. Even a strong woman like Kara felt the strain of carrying life inside her, and the guild knew it too. He paused at her door, one hand resting against the metal, feeling the faint hum of the station's recycled air pumps behind it. Then he keyed the chime. "Come in," came Kara's voice, roughened with fatigue but steady as ever. Arg stepped inside. Her quarters were small, not much larger than his bunk on the Widow, but Kara had managed to claim the space as her own. A blanket stitched from old suit fabric lay across her bed. A narrow shelf held a line of guild slates stacked neatly by topic: resource disputes, repair requests, trade quotas. On the wall hung a piece of cloth embroidered by one of the guild's weavers, an abstract swirl of thread meant to represent the belt's endless paths. Kara sat at the small table, one hand supporting her head, the other resting lightly on her stomach. The curve there was unmistakable now, a quiet, insistent reminder of how much time had passed since the trial of the seed. "You look like you've been chewing on iron," Kara said, studying him. Arg grunted and dropped into the chair opposite her. "Orphans did their run. Sloppy, dangerous, but they lived." "That's something," Kara said. She reached for the kettle on the coil heater beside her, poured water into 2 metal cups, and pushed one across to him. Her hands moved slower now, careful in a way he hadn't seen before. It unsettled him more than any accident in the void. He wrapped his fingers around the cup, but didn't drink. His eyes stayed on her belly. "You shouldn't be working this late." Kara gave a tired smile. "You shouldn't be lecturing me when you're the one running kids through racks." "Fair," Arg said after a long pause. He lifted the cup, drank, and let the warmth settle into him. Kara leaned back, watching him. "There's something you're not saying." Arg set the cup down, jaw tightening. He reached into his pack and pulled out a slate. He slid it across the table to her. The display lit with an image pulled from the hub's deep vault. The seed fragments. Kara's expression sharpened. "You've seen it too?" Arg nodded. The fragments pulsed faintly on the feed, light running like veins across their jagged edges. The harmonics were subtle, almost like a vibration caught by the sensors, but not the ear. If you watched too long, it almost looked like the fragments were aligning themselves, shifting toward some unseen order. "That wasn't there before," Arg said. "No," Kara agreed. She tapped the slate, cycling through her own recordings. "I noticed it 3 days ago. Small at first, 1 pulse, barely visible. But it's grown, stronger every day." "Anyone else know?" "Just us," Kara said. "I pulled the feeds privately, told the med techs it was guild business. If the guild council knew, they'd panic." "Or worse," Arg said. "They'd want to use it." Kara's hand drifted to her stomach again, an unconscious gesture. "I didn't want the orphans to hear about it either. They've got enough to carry." Arg's silence stretched. The hum of the kettle filled the room. Finally, he muttered, "I hate it." Kara tilted her head. "Hate what?" "That we can't escape it," he said. His voice was gravel but low. "Every step forward, building the guild, raising the orphans, this child, it all circles back to that damn seed, like it's watching us, waiting." Kara's eyes held his for a long moment. Then she said softly, "Maybe it is." The words hung heavy in the stale air. When Arg left later that night, Kara stayed at the table, staring at the faint glow of the slate long after the kettle cooled. The fragments pulsed in their quiet rhythm, and in the same moment she felt her child shift within her. The timing unnerved her. She pressed her palm flat against her stomach and whispered, "Not yet." Whether she meant the seed or the child, she couldn't say. Meanwhile, Arg sat alone in the widow's control deck, staring at the dead stars beyond the docking ring. His ship hummed around him, a constant, familiar presence. Yet even here, he swore he could feel that same faint pulse echoing through the hull, through his bones. He gripped the console until his knuckles whitened. "You wait," he said under his breath, voice rough. "She needs time. We need time." But the void never waited. And deep in the hub's vault, the seed fragments pulsed again. The end of Part 4 of Void Miner, Children of the Belt.